Anyway, what we're going to do here today is I'm going to talk a little bit about the beginnings of acoustic blues guitar, which is odd seeing as I'm plugged in for the first time in a long time, but we're going to talk a little bit about where early blues guitar came from. Imagine that there are two blokes walking on the beach somewhere in Hawaii, or along the banks of the Mississippi River, or somewhere in North Africa. Doesn't matter. Two blokes walking along and the guitar washes up. And so one of them picks it up and he goes, this kind of looks like a musical instrument, you know. Wonder what it sounds like. So he grabs it and he goes, sheesh. And his mate goes, what is that? Some kind of jazz? I don't know, look, I mean, that's what it does. The second guy goes, well, that sounds like crap. Can you make it sound any better? Alright, so what happens if we twiddle this bit? No, do. That's a bit better, yeah. Try twiddling again. Sounding more like something. Well, if something is good, do it more and it gets better. Unless it's something you shouldn't be doing. Hey, that one works with that one. So here you go. All of a sudden, instead of this, we've got something that sounds like this. And then the third guy walks up and he goes, no, mate. You got to put all those fingers on the guitar neck to make this sound good. You got to keep them locked down all the time, otherwise it will sound bad. And the first two blokes go, nah. We're not going to listen to that. We want it to sound like this. Look how good we sound with just with one hand. We do that all day long with just one hand. All early cultures who played stringed instruments played in what they call open tuning. That was a long way to say early primitive cultures, supposedly primitive cultures, tuned their instruments to sound good before they started playing. We've got this tradition of tuning our guitars to sound bad and then teaching ourselves to play them to sound good, to fit in with Western musical ideas. In Hawaii, they didn't do that. They played a form of music called slack key, which relied on what we call open tunings, which means the guitar is tuned differently to an open chord rather than tuned in fifths, is it? Is that what they normally tune guitars in, Jeff? Fifths? Fourths? Yeah, close. One out. Basically, what you can do with open tunings, and this is tuned D, G, D, G, B, D, is play complex right-hand rhythms and very simplistic left-hand stuff and still sound good. It's using one finger on one string at a time with the left hand. So it's a much easier way of playing guitar, which leads to early blues guitar. There's theories that it was influenced by parlour guitar. I don't believe so. Parlour guitar being the 1840s to 1880s white popular music of the time, which was in standard tuning. There's theories that it's influenced by Hawaiian guitar, open-tuned Hawaiian guitar, slack key guitar from the 1880s. I don't believe so because there's no musical connection. You listen to the music, it doesn't sound anything like early blues. When I say early blues, I mean early open-tuned Mississippi Delta style blues. If you listen to black banjo music from the turn of the century, black banjo music is an open-tuned banjo, and it sounds like early blues guitar. So I personally believe that the black blues guitarists of the late 19th century, early 20th century were adapting banjo styles to this new instrument that they were able to get hold of, the guitar. The earliest form of that Delta blues, that early acoustic blues thing, I don't believe was the Robert Johnsons, the Charlie Pattons, all that stuff. I believe it was far more archaic. And by archaic, I mean very one chord, very rhythmical, very blues sounding. So so many pockets, so few ideas where I put things. I did have a very small musician here somewhere that I was going to... Oh no, I've got a capo instead. The beauty of these pants is they have pockets everywhere. I'll just put this capo on because it's easier on my fingers. I believe that the earliest blues guitar stuff was probably from Mississippi, the non-white influenced blues, not the Mississippi John Hurt sort of pop music adapted to blues. I'm talking about the really archaic African influence stuff. I believe it was very similar to what a guy called R.L. Burnside played, a guy like John Lee Hooker played, a guy like Fred McDowell played. Droning, rhythmic, repetitive stuff. Similar is a 1950s recording, very similar to John Lee Hooker's style from the 1950s. But I personally believe that a lot of the early blues sounded like that, pre-recording, pre-1926. Later on, guys like Charlie Patton came along, and they, once again using open tunings, developed a style that was very rhythmic, but more syncopated than what you've just heard. And that's the archetypal classic Delta blues, this sort of pattern style. Once again, open tuning, the ability to play simplistic stuff with your left hand and complex stuff with your right hand. That's the secret of, that's the main difference between... You guys rock! No, wait, you guys suck! Anyway, they're ignoring me. Oh, no, they're not. Anyway, sorry, back to this. You take people like Charlie Patton, they segue through their friends, their musical associations like Son House. Tommy Johnson, one of the greatest singers from that period, the greatest guitarist from that period, leads you to the elephant in the room, Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson's the first guy to really sit down and study the records of the people who'd come before him. The guitarists like Lonnie Johnson, standard tuning. The guitarists like Skip James, a very obscure guitarist who never made a few records but never became popular. Guitarists like Son House, Charlie Patton. Johnson went down, he sat down, he's this young guy. He was a bit sort of ADHD, you know, he just focused on stuff. And he worked out his style of playing guitar based on a whole lot of earlier influences. For example, Johnson would do things like, you know, based on pattern sort of stuff, right? He would also do things based on Son House, like walking blues, you know, that's classic Son House. Classic Son House stuff. So he became one of the channels of the older guys that has brought the older music from the 60s onwards, early 60s onwards, into our common repertoire. Johnson was the first guy to popularise, for which every blues jam from here to bloody Darwin, you know, is in great debt for their repertoire. I personally find it very difficult to play. It's hard to keep the rhythm steady for me without a drummer. But anyway, that's an aside. Any questions about early blues guitar? Go on.
Where does Bo Diddley fit into this?
Good question. So Bo Diddley is another guy from Mississippi who grew up hearing people playing in open tunings. He learnt that sort of style, right? And then he sort of went, well, I've got this electric guitar. I'm sure Bo Diddley did play in standard tunes, but all of his early recordings are open tunings, usually open E. But you can sort of do it in open G, sort of a. Now you try and do that in standard tuning, it's like fingers. Open tuning is just like. Once again, really simple guitar, really rhythmic, really strongly rhythmic. And this is the difference between black music and white music of the time, is that in black music, rhythm was king. You know, white music, not so much. You know, rhythm was actually even a little bit challenging, particularly really strongly syncopated African-derived rhythms like Patton. You know, most white people, when they hear, you know, Patton stuff, it's like, oh, that's all out of time, dude. You know. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear. difference in really good. Bo Diddley, along with Howling Wolf, along with Muddy Waters, probably several others, took early 1930s musical styles, tunings, and brought it into the rock and roll era. Bo Diddley was far more rock and roll than, say, Muddy Waters or Howling Wolf, but they were guys, I think he was from Macomb. So Bo Diddley was from Macomb in Mississippi, right? Most of those guys were from Mississippi with the occasional, Louisiana, Texas sort of character. When you went further north, Carolina and places like that, you ended up with more white-influenced guitar styles, such as Mississippi John Hurt's guitar style, which is standard tuned, alternating bass, much more straightforward melodically and rhythmic. So that's basically an open G tuning, DGD, GBD. I've capoed it up to open A. A lot of the blues players capoed would tune up to open A, but it's really harmful on your guitars, so better off not to. I'll just give you a quick example of open D tuning, and a little bit of an example of slide guitar. Now, is Les Karski here?
Yep, I am.
Les, are you going to get up and do some stuff once I've finished?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'll do a couple more and then we'll have a short break and we'll get Les up. And I'm not sure what Les is going to do, but I'm sure it's going to be good. And then we're going to stick around after Les has done his thing. We're going to get the master of Flang Dang, Mr. Jeff Lang, and he's going to do his thing. So I'll just do a couple more.
What was the guitar you were just playing, Skip?
That was a Gibson ES-125 from 1950. It's not my style of guitar, to be quite honest. Most of my style of guitars and guitar playing comes from, 1928 to about 1936. So that is a much more modern style guitar, but I brought it along to the vintage guitar show to try and sell it. So this is open D tuning, D-A-G, F-sharp-A-D. You can look that up on YouTube. There are people on YouTube now teaching this stuff. It's amazing. When I was a kid trying to learn this stuff, it was like you go down to the shop, you order in a record, you wait 18 months for it to arrive, you put the record on the record player, it goes, and underneath that you can just hear Charlie Patton go, and you lifted it from one bit to the next and you went, what did he do there? Oh, he must have gone, oh no, it wasn't that, it was... This is how you learned back then. Nowadays you get on YouTube and there's some Chinese kid about 8 years old and he can play rings around anyone you've ever met in some archaic style that you never thought you'd ever see somebody live playing. And there's about 12 of him. So anyway, open D tuning, D-A-D, F-sharp-A-D, you can learn that on YouTube. It's a great tuning for what we call the alternating thumb. This is a non-murderer's thumb. Later on, Jeff will demonstrate a murderer's thumb. It's a very different thumb. Can you remember to show the audience that later on, Jeff? Murderer's thumb is very different and it enables you to play extremely well and extremely fast. I, unfortunately, was born with a non-murderer's thumb, otherwise I'd be really good. But anyway, I haven't murdered anyone, so that's a bonus. Alternating bass. Thumb just going from one string to the other. That's your metronome. That's your heartbeat. I sat there for months just doing this. In an open tuning, watching television, watching the boxing. Doing this. Until it was going tick, 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 tick in my head. Then over the top of that, because it's open tuning and you don't have to worry about what you're doing here too much, you can do all sorts of stuff with either your fingers or a slide. like open D for that alternating bass stuff. You can play the harder Delta blues. You can play the Mississippi Fred McDowell stuff in open D. So the point I'm looking to get across is that the ease of using an open tuning frees up that left hand from the constraints of having to try and make everything sound good on this end, because your fallback position sounds good. So as long as you stay within those parameters and not try and make something deliberately sound bad up here, you can always fall back to sounding good. Whereas in standard tuning, it's very hard to keep everything sounding good unless you've got everything locked down with your left hand. This is why early cultures found ways to do things easy. You know, why do something hard if you can do it easy, if there are no rules? And open tunings are a way to give you those rules. I just noticed something really interesting. No, but I mean, I can pick out individuals. See, we've got your McCall Conan there in there. See this guy with the beard back there? And look, I can bounce light off the top of that guy's head. Yeah, sorry. I'd like to thank our sound guy.
That's the brightest I've been all day. Sorry.
And our ancestors, the apes, for making all this possible. Thank you very much. My name's Skip, and stick around. We're going to have Les and Jeff coming on fairly soon.